off these voices, and we came across two names. So I really want to know if is there a Russ out there tonight? Is there a Russ out there tonight? You are amazingly. We received this EVP, and as creepy as it could be.
No, not at all. It was. Lewis had something to do with it.
Very good, thank you. Okay, so with that in mind, we cannot say enough about your club. And listen, we're not saying anything new that you don't already know. You have an incredible place here with an incredible history. I want to thank the searchers and our crew for being with us this evening. And I can't say enough, especially for our family which showed up. So first, I want to introduce my beautiful wife Heather, who's in the background. Thank you. I also would like to introduce Manel the dad. Thank you very much, the lovely Manel the dad. And the very handsome, my brother-in-law, Ryan Cron. So as Megan said, I'm Jason Davis, and
I'm Brian Toth.
And really this is a kind of a family-oriented group. And I'll explain. My brother, he may look like my twin, he isn't, he's my little brother, but Jake Davis. His position in the group is the technical manager, and he does a great job with all the equipment that we have up here. So at some point this evening, please come up and take a look, and feel free to pick it up and take a look. We'll be more than happy to explain.
And if you have any questions at all, Jake will be more than happy to answer them.
I also want to extend a welcome to my sister, my lovely sister, Sarah Cron, investigator. Thank you. And Mr. Toth, who has a few younger brothers here this evening. On the camera over here is actually one of my former students, Chris Toth. He is our assistant tech manager. And I was his cooperating teacher. He was my student teacher, Michael Toth. So by day we are teachers. By night, we hunt ghosts. We are the searchers. We are an investigative group who is dedicated to unraveling the mysteries of the paranormal. This is a hobby for us, and this is something that we love to do. And once again, I just have to give a thanks to our family members, because after an investigation, we call it the post-investigation hangover. It takes a while to recover, especially when you are up until the sun comes up and you're walking around in the middle of the night bumping into tables and doors, and so it takes a little bit to recover from that. So thank you guys once again. My first brush with the paranormal happened at a very early age. My siblings and I grew up in Easton, Pennsylvania, right down the road, historical Easton, Pennsylvania. And we lived in an old home, and a lot of unexplained things happened. And so that sort of led to a greater appreciation. We dove further into the topic by making annual trips down to the Easton Library, where I found myself looking for books about spirits and ghosts. And I had my first encounter with an 8-foot, hairy, tall creature, the legend of Bigfoot. And I swore as a 9-year-old that I will find him someday, so I'm still looking. Now, Brian and I met. He is a fellow history teacher at North Warren Regional High School up in Blairstown, New Jersey. And I became his sort of quasi-mentor. And we found ourselves, remember what period it was?
Study hall. That's it?
That's it. That's all we need to remember.
You've been going so well.
We shared a study hall period, and the typical study hall rhetoric, like,
and just so we're aware, this was my first year at North Warren. I have never met him before, and they stick me on study hall with him, and so we have nothing to talk about. And me, being a nerd, I start talking about how I watch the Sci-Fi Channel, and I expect him to make fun of me. And thankfully, he doesn't when I start talking about ghost hunters and taps and the X-Files, which I'm a huge fan of.
Speaking of the X-Files, now, how many of you are familiar with the TV series X-Files? Anyone in here? It went off the air a couple of years ago. But the main character in that TV series was one Fox Mulder. Okay, Fox Mulder was a tall, lanky, brown-haired, suit-wearing FBI agent. He doesn't model himself after him whatsoever. So if you're Fox Mulder, I guess that makes me Dana Scully.
I wish.
Now, minus the red hair and the long legs, I imagine. So in November of 2008 is when we formed the Searchers, and like I said, we try to take a different approach to the investigations. We try to keep an open mind. We try to use a lot of science and the most up-to-date equipment in our investigations. A lot of people ask, what is it like to go on an investigation? And I have to ask you, if you sort of think back in your memory a little bit about the first time you watched a scary movie. So think about maybe those feelings that you had, you wanted to jump on maybe your boyfriend's lap or vice versa, I'm not too sure. But you know, you're not too sure, you're worried about what's going to hop out on that next scene. And every time we go on an investigation, we sort of relive that, that initial watching that first horror film that we have. So it's something that we enjoy. People are thrill seekers, they jump out of planes, they bungee jump. We walk around in the dark looking for ghosts. So that is our thrill seeking, and we have a great time doing it. We're going to actually provide two things for you this evening, okay? In a moment, we're going to show you a very brief PowerPoint presentation, which is going to highlight equipment that we use. Okay, our procedures which we go through with each investigation, the type of evidence that we're looking for, and finally maybe some of the best evidence that we've come across so far. And we're very excited to present to you this evening. Now, one thing I want you to think about is, as teachers, we try to teach our students to be open-minded, especially in today's day and age. You can't get away from that. So I'm not here, and Brian, and we're not here this evening to make you believers. Okay, that by no means, we're not here to do that. But if you walk away this evening and from this presentation and maybe you're stroking your chin or scratching your head a little bit and say, what if? That's a pretty powerful thing. So if you walk here this evening and you ask yourself, what if? I think we've accomplished our goal. So Brian, if you want to start with the PowerPoint presentation, look at that. He's all ready to go. Great. All right, and just a couple things you're going to see. This guy, his name is, we're very corny, his name is Humphrey Bogart. All right, so I don't know if there's any copyright infringements with that, but don't tell anyone. All right, so what we're going to examine here is what we do not do. We are approached by many people.
Especially our high school students that continually call us Ghostbusters, much to our dismay.
Unfortunately, our homes aren't large enough to hold a containment unit, so we do not capture ghosts. What we try to do is capture evidence of their existence. Now, I don't know if you remember her a couple of years ago. Her name was Cleo, all right, with the strong Jamaican accent. Now, this is interesting. We don't have conversations with the deceased or the dead, okay? What we do is we hold EVP sessions, which we try to make contact with them. Now, there are a lot of candles out here this evening. We will not be conducting a seance, so don't worry about that. And for us, we do this for free. We do it for the love of the history, okay? When you get to walk into an absolutely gorgeous building like this, to meet great people, that's enough for us. And, Brian and I were just talking today, and, we got into this, I don't want to call it business because that's taken away, but we got into this group sort of selfishly, all right? What do I mean by that is we wanted to prove the existence of spirits. So we got into it for us. What we learned very quickly is that there are a lot of people out there who have experiences, and we've had people reach out to us where they couldn't go back home at night, that they just couldn't live in their apartment any longer. So really what this turned out to be is a service for individuals, and it's something that we treasure, and it's exciting to go out there and help people, and it's definitely one of the reasons why I think we're going to be doing this for a very long time. All right, typical investigation, Brian. Why don't you start with the historical research and aspect of
One of
this?
the things that actually his interest was sparked by his encounters in the Easton Library with Bigfoot. Mine was actually sparked by the history of it. I love history. I love doing the research. Particularly, I love the folkloric aspect of researching these locations, researching the urban legends. If you know anything about folklore, at the heart of folklore, many people believe there is this kernel of truth. And I love trying to dig down and get as close to that truth as I possibly can. And Jason and I will tell you that no one is an expert on this. We do not come in here claiming to be experts on this.
There's no degree for it, trust me.
There isn't anyone that we've looked at. Like at the last slide, there was we found a site online that was actually charging like $95 to give you a degree in paranormal investigating. Don't do that. But yes, we continue. We start with the historical research. Like I think Jason can talk about how he did hours of research on the Northampton Country Club and researching legends here and the stories here. And I don't know if this is the point where you want to talk about this or not.
Well, I mean, I'm sure. How many of you are familiar with the story of Rebecca Law, the ghost that walks in the black? Okay. Now I'm just going to walk over here, and it is basically Margaret. Okay, maybe Margaret. Okay, but with one of the aspects of research which we conducted, she actually went by the name Rebecca. Okay, Rebecca or Margaret was a German immigrant, as most people were in this area, and unfortunately, sort of Margaret met her maker at the age of 33. And we're going to examine. We tried to sort of examine the legend of Margaret, so that was going to be the basis of our investigation that evening. And this is literature. This is something that has been printed here in Ghost Stories of the Lehigh Valley. So if you get a chance, you want to take a look. The story is in here. Okay. How many of you are familiar with Hangman's Island on the Delaware? Anyone? Hey, thank you very much. It is at the forks of the Delaware. It's a tiny island, and it used to, the most infamous hanging there was of Charles Getter, the gentleman who took the young life of Margaret, who happened to be his wife. So you'll hear a little bit more about that story and legend in our webisode, so I don't want to take too much from that. I also have some literature up here as well, which was an article which was printed in 1833, which goes into a little bit more depth about the actual murder. And unfortunately, to add, today would be considered a double murder because she was with child at the time. So that's something that we, examine and try to, uncover in our investigation.
One of the next steps in at the start of the investigation is the collection of personal accounts. One of the best things about this is that we get to interview people that have actually been at the Northampton Country Club, have had these stories, have had these experiences, and you'll see we did our best to include those interviews in our webisode that we created. We wanted to do justice to your stories. We wanted to thank you for taking the time to actually sit down with us during your busy schedules and during your Friday afternoons, I believe it was.
Yeah.
So we did our best to include that, and I think one of the best parts of this entire, it's not a job, but one of this entire hobby is actually getting to talk to these people. Yep. And for me, it's getting to talk to them about these experiences with the paranormal, the unexplained, whatever they might be.
And in this. You see, I'm kind of trying to call it a job, and we know it's not. But what's great is, as Brian mentioned, we're meeting very, very interesting people. And for us, I mean, we obviously promote ourselves with our website, but it's all about networking. And so, it's nice to go into a place and then hear, well, hey, we have this story about this home. So for us, it's sort of it's networking and branching out to different investigations. So it's like I said, it's also part of this interview process.
And so once we actually start this investigation, the tools that we have been collecting, the tools that we used at the Northampton Country Club, there we go. What we use to actually record the investigation are about 3-4 handheld cameras that we carry around throughout the investigation. And we pretty much record nonstop. So we have at the end of the night, whatever it is, 8 hours, 9 hours of actual footage that we then have to go through.
And that's just one camera. So then add in 3 or 4 other cameras, and that's just the handhelds.
We also use digital audio recorders. These are the things that help us capture the EVPs that Mr. Diggs, Jason has been talking about. I went to school. I'm in school mode.
That's all right. And I think really with what we've seen so far in the past investigations is our best evidence has come from these audio recorders. And as I mentioned before in a little bit of the setup, sorry Russ, or these EVPs. And we really feel that, in trying to find evidence, and it really sort of sets what we call, and we're going to get into this, the difference between what's called an intelligent haunting and a residual haunting. And it sort of allows us to sort of investigate further into various different claims, and EVPs are sort of our best group of evidence so far. Oh, EMFs, okay. All right, we have a slew of these up here. This is called a K2 meter, and this is called a Mel meter. What they do is they measure the energy. Okay, and as stated by many investigators, it takes a spirit, a lot of energy to manifest itself or to show itself. And so we use these to document spikes in energy readings. It's measured in milligauss. Okay, and what we would do is we walk around the room and we get a base reading, as you can see up here on the screen.
This is actually one of our associate members, and she's actually using in one of our first investigations in the attic of a home that's allegedly was haunted in Union, New Jersey. And so it's
familiar?
Familiar.
There you go. All right, a lot of haunted places there. And so what we're looking for is we go around with a base reading. Usually your base reading is anywhere from a 0.0 to a 0.2. Okay, and what we're looking for are spikes. And a lot of times it coincides with asking various questions. Now we're showing off all these fancy tools, but in all honesty, a lot of times your best evidence, and I know it's coming up on the slide, is, I'm sorry for stealing that, but is yourself, okay? And what's kind of neat is you're having an experience and your body feels it, okay? The hair in your arm stands up, the back of your neck, you feel these chills, you can feel cold spots. And so the Mel meter does two things. It measures the increase in energy, but also records the ambient temperature in the room. And so as stated by many others is that when you come across a spirit, there's usually, it coincides with a drop in temperature. So this thing does two things. It measures the increase in energy, and it will also take the ambient temperature in the room. So when you have a spike in your milligauss, you have a drop in temperature, and we're talking 10 degrees, a couple degrees, that's nothing. But when you see a dramatic drop, 10 degrees, then you're really working with something.
Also, the DVR systems that we use throughout the night, we have 8 cameras, correct, Christopher? Yes. We have 8 cameras that we actually set up, and these record continuously throughout the night. They're infrared, so they record in the dark. And it's actually Christopher's job, Michael's job, and Jake's job to go through each of these cameras, and each of them, again, are recording 8 hours, so you times that by 8 cameras. That's a lot of sitting there and just watching, sometimes absolutely nothing happening for a ridiculous amount of time. Luckily for us, since we founded the group, we decided to give that job to the 3 of them.
Wow. And what we just have running on here is our investigation here from that evening in early August. And I know it may be tough for some of you in the back to see, but we had cameras set up here in the women's locker room, okay, where we heard a great deal of stories. At one point, I think the night it started pretty slow, and I think Jake and Brian will tell you that maybe we started getting that creepy feeling when we went in there for the first part of the investigation. So we sent in some guys. We also started off sending my sister, and I also want to mention Karen Black, who's not with us tonight. She's coaching cheerleading, so she's out there rah-rah-rahing with her girls. So we sent our female investigators in there to sort of work the room, and I think when the guys showed up is really when sort of the atmosphere changed a little bit, and I think that sort of set the tone for the rest of the night. Just other areas here, obviously the downstairs bar room, okay, some hot spots, and as we're going to learn later, we had a few experiences there as well. So we just have these running, just so that you can see where we had our cameras set up, and it is very tedious to sit back and watch these individually for 8 hours at a time. So
no, we don't got to do it.
Yeah.
One of the tools that we used throughout the night was the K2 meter. Jason can tell you about the K2 meter. It's actually in the webisode. You're going to see him actually say how you can the spirit can actually contact us, or the entity, whatever it may be, by making the lights on the K2 meter go from green to yellow to orange to red. I got it.
Got it? Got it. Good.
You can continue with that.
It's just more of a visual reading, okay? What I showed you before with the millimeters, it's giving you numbers. Okay, this is a little fancier, I think, just because it's got bright lights. It's kind of neat. All right, and usually what we use this tool to do is to communicate. And a lot of times we've received responses, okay, where you get a base reading and you can see that it's just this green colored light. Okay, and the way we try to communicate is if we feel that there is an energy or someone with us in the room, we ask it to increase these lights, okay, to send it from green to yellow to orange to red. And so it's one way that we try to use to communicate with the entity.
Another one of the tools that, to be totally honest, we wish we had, but we don't have. It's on our Christmas list.
Honey, are you listening?
is the thermal imaging camera, and TAPS is well known for using the thermal imaging camera, which for some reason isn't popping up a video about the TAPS crew at this moment. There we go. But there's sound too.
Yeah, well, I'm going to mess around with these maybe to...
What is that? We're going down for a second. Jay continued to investigate the tunnel, and as we were walking through...
So it's measuring heat.
Jay thought he had seen something out of the corner of his eye. No way. No way. What the heck? I have no idea. It looked like there was a person at the end of the hallway that walked from the right to the left, turned around, and walked back over. Did you see this? I saw a red thing on the side of the camera, but there's got to be somebody down here. So I want to see if we can catch somebody. Yeah, go look.
Oh, good. Stop.
Okay, I'm going to slowly put on the light, so watch your eyes. I don't want to shock everyone.
But as you can see, the thermal imaging camera picks up either hot spots or cold spots, and again, it is extremely expensive, and we're only teachers, so we make money.
And you know, we sit here, and obviously it's a lot of these television shows which sort of got us into this gig, and so you know, you take it with a grain of salt. It's hard to sometimes believe what you're seeing because you know, we try to bring an air of professionalism with us. We do it every day in school and on our job, so you know, it's tough to believe sometimes what you see until you experience it.
Another one of the tools that we used, and was actually extremely valuable here at the Northampton Country Club, was the Spirit Box. And it has a silly name. Jake and I always laugh whenever we say it during the investigation. But it actually, Jake, why don't you tell us about it?
Jake, you want a moment here to show?
It's called a Spirit Box, and Brian hates when I call it that for some reason. But actually what this does is it will channel through radio frequencies at a high rate, and it produces a white noise. And the theory is that spirits can talk through that white noise. So we try to have real-time conversations with the spirits. And we do more often than not get hits on this actually. So it's a very valuable piece for us.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And like Jason said before, and he kind of stole the thunder at the end, personal experience is probably one of the most valuable tools of the investigator during the investigation, because sometimes it's inevitable that you're going to get experiences that you do not capture with audio, that you do not capture with video. Jason had a few of those experiences here tonight. The girls had a few of those experiences with the elevator, which is one of the claims right, at the club. And so, it is one of the most valuable tools that we have actually during the investigation.
And it's very cheap. All right, so I mean, you come into an investigation, and through the interview process is where you really learn the different types of hauntings. And what Brian is going to show you up here are the types that we mostly deal with, and in past investigations, we primarily have dealt with the residual type hauntings and the intelligent. Okay, to sound very, very basic with residual hauntings, usually if you've, and I know we've experienced this here with some of the staff with their explanation, but it could be the sounds of footsteps running down the hallway every night at 2 o'clock in the morning. Okay, it's the sound of the rapping on the wall the same time during the day. It's believed that the energy has left an imprint either in a home or on grounds, and it is replaying that almost like a broken record.
Essentially, that an event has been so traumatic in the location's past that it's literally left a psychic imprint, a psychic residue on this location, and then just throughout time, throughout space, it continues to really play that over and over again. And it's like Jason said, a record that's skipping, and it'll only play at a certain time, or only play at a certain moment. And it's very different than an intelligent haunt, in which you can actually interact with the entity or with the spirit, where you can actually ask it questions and it will respond to those questions, or it'll call your name, or it'll even say its name as we do. I don't want to give it away, so I won't go any further.
And then when you do see manifestations, or the spirit or entity show itself in whatever form, it may be a mist, okay? It may be a black figure. It may be a full body apparition, which is the holy grail in this field. And most of the things we've dealt with so far have been those residual, those intelligent type hauntings. Poltergeist, one of those freaky movies that I watched as a kid, all right, with the little girl and the television and go to the light, Conan. We have not dealt with anything like that, but I know there's a lot of literature, and poltergeist is German for noisy ghost, and we haven't come across any noisy ghost yet. I think some are keeping their fingers crossed that we don't, but it is something we have not experienced. And this is when you're dealing with objects being thrown around the room. And our research showed that it usually surrounds a young adolescent female. Okay, and I'm not going to get into the whole psychokinesis aspect of this. It's out of my realm and my comfort level. But most research leads to young adolescents, and usually leading to girls who are unable to sort of express themselves, and a lot of pent-up frustration, and it actually leads to some psychokinesis and movement of objects. So,
some of the things that we actually experience on an investigation, which could indicate the presence of a spirit or of an entity, is we might lose battery power from our handhelds, from the audio recorders that we use, from the EMF, from the K2 meters. And a lot of the speculation about this is that an energy or a spirit needs the power of the battery power, to actually manifest in our space-time, and it's actually using that energy, or even in some instances, our physical energy, to manifest and to interact with us. A lot of times, all of a sudden, we'll be on an investigation, and all of a sudden, we will feel very, very tired, and it'll be fresh in the investigation. It won't be at 3 a.m., which by that time, we are just all very, very tired. And so that's one of the theories that revolves around investigations with battery loss. Another is, like Jason's been talking about for quite often, are the EVPs, the sound of voices. These are not audible at the time. You cannot hear them at the time. It's only when we go through the many hours of footage that we have on the 3, 4, 5 digital voice recorders that we actually use, the electronic voice recorders, which is actually Christopher's field. He's very good at that, sitting there and just listening to sometimes nothing but static, and picking out these possible indications of electronic voice phenomena. Yeah. Okay.
So, was there a video there?
I don't know.
I swear it went perfectly this morning.
There we go.
You can hear what sounds like, hello, is there somebody there?
So again, this is
So are you in here?
At one point, Jay said, "Princess, are you in the room?" And it sounds like she's, of course, in the room.
Princess, can you at least let us know you're in here? Will you say something? Will you say something?
Now I know you're probably thinking, hold on, you guys are the searchers, why do you keep showing taps things? Don't worry, we do have our own EVPs that you are welcome to come up here and listen to. We have it on the iPads, and we have headphones for you to listen to if you're so inclined, if you're so interested. And actually some of the best EVPs we have, we've caught recently at a restaurant in the local area, also a place in Pennsylvania, and some actually here.
And EVPs, it's something like you mentioned with Chris, sitting there for hours and listening to static. And so when you come across the voice, at first you have to be realistic. Okay, you have to say, okay, where's the team at? Where are all the members at? Okay, where are they located within the home? Once you've gone through that, then you really have to ask yourself, where in the world is this voice coming from? EVPs are broken down into classes, and what you just heard are considered Class A EVPs. These are things that you hear with your ear, you exactly know. There's no, listen, we've already broke up a couple times.
Oh, you stole it, I was going to say.
Seriously, over EVPs, because I will hear one thing, Brian will hear the other, and then we're trying to compete with the rest of the group, say, listen, this is what I think it is, and this is what Brian thinks it is. It happens quite often.
And we do not automatically jump to the conclusion. If we hear something, we automatically say, oh, that sounds like Christopher, let's call it an EVP. We do everything we possibly can to debunk it, to say it's a noise in the room, or a heater turning on, or an air conditioner turning on. We are not in any location to prove it's haunted. We are not in any location to disprove it's haunted. We are just here to try to uncover the evidence that we find and the history of the location, and try to find out the truth behind these claims.
Very good, thanks.
No problem, buddy. Orbs, I'm just going to throw these all up here.
Okay, go ahead. Why don't you stop and just go back to the orbs for a sec so we can see the differences. All right, well, how many of you are familiar with orbs? Okay, now many of us have taken pictures on digital cameras before, and you have that unexplained sort of ball of energy in your film. 99% of the time, you're able to prove that, depending on where you're at, what time of the year, whether it's pollen, dust, or bugs, and to be honest, it's probably not going to run through, but in the women's locker room, there was a pesky little fly that kept on flying across the camera. So at first, we're watching that, and you see that, and you say, oh my gosh, what is that? And you break it down, and you can really tell that it's a fly. So you have to take these things with sort of a skeptical eye. I believe we're going to show you a footage of, probably one of our, at times, one of our best pieces of information or evidence that we captured. Now we can sort of sit back and say, we're not quite sure exactly what it could be. So we're going to let you take a look at that later.
Cold spots are also some of the indications that there might be some kind of entity, some kind of spirit, but a lot of times we try to debunk this as just being an air conditioner turn on or a heater turn on. Again, we don't get cold and all of a sudden freak out and think that there's something there that's trying to interact with us. We do our best to use, for lack of a better term, and since we're teachers, the scientific method to uncover the truth.
A lot of times paranormal myths are easily, your breath, depending on what time of year it is. We've never come across any paranormal myths quite yet.
So what do we believe?
There's my buddy.
At the core, we believe that the stories that talk about the encounters with the paranormal should be taken seriously. I particularly got into this because so often that, like Fox Mulder would say, that these instances aren't taken seriously. They're too easily brushed off. And there are so many rational, intelligent people out there that have had these experiences that come forward and say, I saw something, or I heard something, or I felt something. That too many people are experiencing these things just for it to be brushed aside as a moment of, sanity. I didn't want to say that, no. These entities might not be deceased people. Jason and I continually have this debate of whether or not they are ghosts, whether or not they're people that have passed over. I am one of the proponents of the idea that maybe in physics and quantum physics there's this idea of a multiverse where there are many universes all in bubbles, and maybe it is just these universes interacting with each other, kind of crossing over, or maybe they're parallel universes that are, for a moment, the frequencies are interacting, and it's a person from another space-time, and we're just hearing those people in their own universe talking and speaking.
See, I can't wrap my mind around that. I know his dial tone for his phone or his ringtone is
most orbs and mists can be explained as dust. Whenever we tell that to anybody we talk to, or even to our students, they always kind of have that, but I have this picture and it has this orb. Unfortunately, most of the time it is just pollen or dirt that is flying around in the air. One of the recent investigations that we just had at the Newberg Inn, the attic was extremely dusty, and unfortunately my brother didn't know that. He sat down in a chair that literally had this much dust on the chair, and you could just see on the infrared cameras this massive plume of dust. I enjoyed it because he was extremely dirty, but again, most of it is just dust and debris.
Now, I think for Brian mentioned this before. Listen, you have to be sort of skeptical with a lot of these claims, and so we turn to William of Ockham, who was a 14th century monk, and is known as Occam's razor. And basically, the simplest solution is usually the correct answer. So that's something we sort of try to live by with our investigations.
So our best evidence so far, on our second investigation, I believe, like Jason was talking about before, it was, I forget exactly the story behind it, the former steel mill.
It's a Bethlehem Steel. If anyone's been over in the Sands region, they've converted a lot of these buildings into condominiums. And very interesting enough, we had two clients who basically shared a wall, and they actually found out that they were sharing the same experiences over the internet. And so they referred to us and gave us a phone call, and this is the client's bedroom, and she basically moved out, I believe after a month, and was unable to go back until after our investigation, and we sort of held a little bit of a blessing and tried to cleanse her apartment. We had some, networked and found some members who were able to do that for us.
What? Oh.
Okay, yeah.
That's unfortunate. But if you go onto our website, there is you can see this wow, you can see. There is this orb that all of a sudden appears in the corner, kind of does a loop-de-loop, and kind of flies at the camera. And we've seen orbs throughout the entire night on this investigation, and it was definitely not any piece of dust or any piece of debris. And so, again, this is our second investigation. We got very excited that we found this. Looking back on it now, we're a little less certain about what it might be, but we're still on that borderline where it could be, and again, we're not ready to throw it out completely. Okay.
Okay, so why don't we just pick one of these to sort of represent and explain. So
We'll do the "You're in my house."
yes. So this is up in Milford, Pennsylvania, if any of you are familiar with the region. We were called into an old home, actually within yards of Thomas Quick's gravesite, which is located, weirdly enough, in the middle of a road. This was really the sort of that put us on the map with experiences that we couldn't explain.
Unfortunately, for some reason, my MacBook is not cooperating and it's not finding the file. However, we do have it on our iPad, and you can come up later and listen to it. But to give you a brief recap, Jason and his brother Jake are outside by their car, and I am with my brothers inside the house on the downstairs floor. I have to leave the house to get a battery because my battery has been completely drained because we've been filming for about 6-7 hours. And Michael and Christopher are in the living room, and Michael asked the question, "Are you in my house? Is this your house?" And you hear this very faint whisper of what sounds to be a little girl say, "You're in my house." And if you don't believe me, which you should, you can come up here and you can listen to it on the iPad. And Mr. Davis, on a recent investigation of why do I keep doing that?
That's all right.
On a recent investigation of the Newburgh Inn, he got very excited, so much so that he called me on the phone, telling me that we actually caught this noose. And actually, you tell it so well that I can
wow,
watch it.
thank you, I appreciate it. The Newburgh Inn was built in 1750, and there is a story of a Native American who was hanged in the attic during the French and Indian War conflict in the 1750s. Now, through research, I was able to validate this story, but hey, we went with it. So we decided to bring a rope and make ourselves a noose, and what we call this is a trigger object. We actually brought some trigger objects the night that we investigated here, and we set the noose up and we conducted EVP sessions, and all of us were down on sort of the first level floor talking about the night's experiences. We move up to the third floor where we're going to conduct our last part of the investigation, and I'm not quite who, maybe it was Sarah or Jake, there you go. who noticed that the noose knot has dropped, as you can see in this picture. So immediately after we finally convinced Chris that it did fall, we tried to disapprove it.
And because he was the last one up, we were all going up to the attic in a single file line, and Christopher was the last one up, and we all saw before him, and we get up here, and Christopher automatically assumes that we're all trying to play a practical joke on him, telling him that this noose would pull down, and it took us a while to actually convince him.
It was just one of those things, pretty amazing. So once again, I ask you to, if you have a chance, to visit the website and see that. So, and that kind of concludes our PowerPoint presentation. Once again, we have business cards, I believe, on the table with our phone numbers on there. If you ever have any questions, or even just someone to talk to, you have questions. Sarah and Emily love working the phones, and they do a great job and helped us in past investigations.
If you have any questions tonight after we screen the webby a little bit, we're definitely here. Any one of us can answer any kind of questions you have, and we're more than happy to talk to you about anything, really.
So enough is enough. Let's get to what we're here for tonight. Okay, and what we're here for is our investigation. And what Brian and I do is, one thing I think that sets us apart from many other groups out there is our production of what we call a webisode. I guess it's going to be the closest thing. What do you see there? It's going to be the closest that we're ever going to get to a television series, so we sort of live in that sort of world. So, we're excited and to see the full-length webisode. What we've done is we've shortened it a little bit for you this evening, and go to their website where we have all of our deleted sort of scenes and all of our interviews in full. So please visit the website to see those things. And without further ado, you have something to add.
I'm going to play the beginning, and then I'll stop at the intro, and then we'll pick it up at the investigation.
Okay, let's do it.
Hopefully this is...
Okay, if you don't mind, I'm going to sort of dim the lights just a little bit. So as we mentioned before, for the full webisode, you can see our website where we have a lot of our deleted scenes. And honestly, I think Brian could have used 2 hours with all the footage that we had and all the interviews that we did. So thank you very much for being part of that. I really hope you enjoyed this presentation. I know we had a great time doing this tonight. This is something that we do in the classroom every day. So coming here this evening and spending it with you on a Friday evening, thank you for showing up. We really appreciate that. Now, this club is a very, very special place, and our evidence didn't provide definitive proof of a hauntings here. But listen, many of you have had stories here, okay, and we want you to keep telling those stories. And it's maybe some of you are on the fence, and that's okay. Like I said, it's just you need to. When you leave here, maybe scratch your head and ask yourself, what if? What are the possibilities? So I just want to say thank you. Brian, in closing, anything you would like to add?
This was an awesome experience. I can't imagine us ever again getting a chance to present to a room of such distinguished people before. And again, thank you on behalf of my brothers, on behalf of Jake, Sarah, Christopher, and is that it? Emily? Thank you very much.
Yes. I thought TV is supposed to make you look fatter. Joe and John look wonderful.
And just one last thing, we had some of the members sneak around tonight and try to put our stickers underneath one of your seats. So hopefully you were sitting on top of that seat. So if you could check before you leave, if there's a sticker underneath there, we have some shirts that we would like to give to you. And we apologize, maybe the size won't fit you, but the holidays are coming around, so please take advantage of that. So thank you very much for coming out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What do you got?